injury. My name is Holly and I'm part of the professional development team here at IIRSM. The webinar will be delivered by Adam Hamilton, who's Innovations Director at Healthcare RM. Before I hand over to Adam, I just need to run through a couple of housekeeping points with you all. So first of all, you're on mute for the duration of the webinar, but if you have any questions, please feel free to type these into the chat function, which you'll find on the right-hand side of your screen. Type these in as we go along, and we will come back to those at the end of the presentation and answer those for you. And then secondly, the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be added to our YouTube channel and will also be shared with Healthcare RM as well after the event. So you'll be able to go back and recap what you've learned in your own time. Okay, so that's enough from me. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you. So welcome everyone. First of all, I'll just introduce myself a bit about my background. I've been involved in sort of functional rehabilitation, exercise, using as movement as a way to improve people's overall health for the past 13 years. What I would like to kind of look at really today is looking at it from a different perspective, rather than focusing on manual handling. Is that there's so much more to that. So we're going to go through a few questions and then we'll get into the depths of the presentation. It should take around 15-20 minutes, and then I'll take questions at the end. So if we start with the first slide here, what we're looking at is work conditioning, and what I've put on this graph is basically we get to a sweet spot of where the individual with the right work conditioning and the right workflow correction is this, like on a bell-shaped curve, is where you're improving efficiency and you're reducing MSK injuries. So when you get to this point, this is where we're looking at, getting somebody right in the middle and improving that efficiency and reducing the risk of there being an injury. Now, when I say workflow correction, what I mean by that is that if you structure an individual's day-to-day routines so that they are putting manual handling tasks in the right places, the same as how we would structure an athlete's workout program or look at the requirements of what they were doing from an athletic point of view in a game that they're playing or a competition, then you're reducing the injury risks. So this is really what we're looking at, is get the individual conditioned and also get the workflow in the right flow throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month and the years. So then that helps that individual stay conditioned for longer. So we've got a first set of questions. If I can ask for the questions to be brought up and get you guys to answer these questions first before we move on. So 3 simple questions, and give you a few seconds to answer those. Okay, so hopefully you've had enough time now to answer those 3 simple questions. So if we go back to the presentation, let's jump back in. Okay, cool. So next slide, really, what is work conditioning? Well, very much the same as when you look at an athlete. They have got a job to do. They've got to be fit for their sport. They've got to be fit for purpose. And this is very much the same that we want to do with individuals within the workplace. So if I'm working with engineers or pilots or stage crew in theatres, anything really, I want to look at what do they need to do, what are the tasks that they do, and where do they have their issues, and then get them functionally fit and strong to be able to carry those out. So this works in conjunction with doing manual handling training, but we know that manual handling training alone won't solve all of the solve all of the issues. So this is really saying, what does that person have to do? They have to maybe get into some weird positions. They have to adopt some odd postures, engineers working in some confined spaces. And then how do we get those people fit for purpose and get them conditions so that they're able to carry that out and minimize their risks? And also at the same time being efficient, because if you're not fit for purpose, you will inevitably have these inefficiencies that we can work on and we can condition ourselves to be better at doing, which leads me quite nicely into what we know. And what we know is that manual handling training doesn't work in isolation. We've seen that with recent studies and publications that have come out, is that if you do the manual handling training, we still have people having MSK injuries and MSK issues that are arriving, or you might see them as MSDs as they're being reported. And we know as well that when you're looking at manual handling, we're not looking at underlying causes and not looking at the personal risk factors. So everybody is different. So the conditioning of each individual, how fit and healthy they are, if they have any other risk factors, such as if they're overweight, if they're inactive, they have diabetes, high blood pressure, pre-existing conditions, all of those sort of things need to be taken into account to make that person fit for purpose and functional for what they do in their day-to-day. Obviously, the requirements of, let's say, a aircraft engineer or a flight attendant or a pilot is going to be different to, say, someone who's servicing and repairing boilers, or somebody who works in an office, or somebody who works in a warehouse. They're all completely different, and their roles are different. So we have to make sure that we're making people functional and fit for purpose that helps them in work to reduce their risk, but also helps them outside of work and improves their overall quality of life and living that they have. So the body is actually a wonderful machine when you know how to use it correctly and also what it's capable of doing. So throwing up some pictures here of just some examples of function, from things like gymnastics to swimming to dance and ballet to running to martial arts. There's so many different examples of where human beings, through the right conditioning and the right preparation and looking after themselves, are able to achieve these incredible feats of strength, agility, flexibility. And that's all down to the fact that they condition themselves to be able to do that. And if we don't do those things, that's where we see issues arising. And particularly when we look within the workplace, we're often, saying, oh, bending's bad for us, or don't do this, or don't do that. Yet from an athletic point of view, working with athletes, you wouldn't ever say to a tennis player, let's say they get some tennis elbow, they get some shoulder issues, you wouldn't say to them, well, stop hitting a tennis ball. You'd look at directly the underlying cause and the personal risk factors for that tennis player and help them condition and rehab out of that and prevent it from happening in the future. The same as like with the gymnast or the swimmer or the dancer, is you look at the underlying cause and then work on building from there so that we're reducing long-term risk and at the same time looking after the overall health of the individual. So next bit that we come on to is some myth busting. And that is very much when we look at these things about back pain, knee pain, we've all heard a lot of myths around them. We've heard about some myths around running and lifting, twisting and bending. And what I've done here is I've just thrown a big, let's bust the myths on all of them. Running's not bad for somebody's knees. It's looking at the individual risks of why a runner is experiencing some knee pain. And why another runner doesn't get knee pain. The same as lifting. We hear, oh, don't lift, it's bad for your back. But again, is it really? Because when we look at individuals, we have people who lift and they never get any back pain. And then we get other individuals that do lift and they get back pain. So again, this really boils down to, it's not a one size fits all. It's very much looking at the individuals, why they're getting that issue. If I'm looking from an employee level or with an athlete, and I look at why has this person got back pain or why have they got knee pain, and then what can we do to prevent that happening in the future and rectify the issue. quite aware that a lot of people are told as well, don't twist, that's bad for your back, don't bend, that's bad for your back. But again, when we look at the previous slides to do with sports and athletics and just normal human movement, human beings will bend and twist. So it's having a look at why does an individual, if they twist and they have an issue, why has that occurred with that person? Not saying that twisting is bad or bending is bad, because in isolation it's never one thing. It's usually a host of things together, like a collective that causes it. So very much with the myths around manual handling, around MSK issues, is it's actually saying, rather than trying to put that as across everybody saying, oh, nobody do it, is look at the individuals and their personal risk factors, look at how well conditioned they are, look at any pre-existing conditions they've had, and then work with that person to overcome those limitations that they might have. And also from the psychosocial factors. So what is their attitudes and beliefs towards that? So if somebody believes that bending is bad for their back, they're then going to start moving in weird and wonderful ways, which then can lead to them having what's called fear avoidant behaviors, which again reinforces this pattern of every time they bend, they feel pain and discomfort. And that's what at Healthcare we use what's called the biopsychosocial approach. So this looks at the individual's biology, but also their psychology and the social aspects. So what do they think and feel about the condition they've got, and then what do they do about it socially? Do they avoid things because of fear, or do they overdo things? So what's called a boom and bust behavior. And again, that's something that gets worked on when we're dealing with functional rehab programs and chronic pain, is trying to get people on a steady progression and graded exposure back to full function. So you're probably wondering, going through all of this, okay, Adam, it's I get what you're saying. It's being functional, it's individual. We can't use one size fits all. We've got to get into that sweet spot of work conditioning and workflow, and people can do these amazing things. And there's a lot of myths out there that we can bust and we can look at. But how do we actually do it? How do we get our individuals, our employees, human beings to be functionally fit? It's got to be something crazy and complicated, hasn't it? There's got to be something very, very complex to it. Well, actually, the answer is no. It's very, very simple. And to kind of summarize all this, to make an individual functional, it's relative to what they need to do. And it's very, very simplistic. It's about moving more and being more active, not about doing lots of exercise and hoping that exercise will be the panacea, the silver bullet to fix things. Humans are designed to move on a daily basis, and the work I've been doing recently and looking at some of the studies that come out of the University of Bath, it's showing that activity, physical activity, is in moving yourself, moving your body on a daily basis, is the number one way to reduce disease risks and to reduce the risk of musculoskeletal issues. So as an example, if you're an office worker that is sat down all day and doesn't move at all, then goes to the gym for half an hour in the evening, that 1 hour doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to reverse everything from being sedentary for the rest of the day. It's still worth going to the gym, but we want to get you moving more throughout the day and increasing your overall physical activity level, which is why I say to people, if you really focus on just moving and being physically active, you don't have to rely on exercise. Exercise is like the cherry on top of the cake. It's that little bit extra that you can use for a specific purpose. And like some of the pictures here, we've got someone who's lifting their child, someone who's doing some gardening, someone down the shops, and then we've also got a couple of sporting things. So this is about mixing up what you do, being in different positions frequently. If you're sat down, just switch your position on a frequent basis. Get up when you take phone calls, move around. All the things we've been told over the years, but they really, really make a difference if it's getting up every 55 minutes and just having standing up quickly and making sure that when you do go to the toilet or you need to get some water, is using that as an opportunity to get a little movement break in there. And then in terms of what you want to do from if you want to do exercise, you want to do sport, do stuff that you enjoy, that you can maintain long term for your life, that fits your lifestyle. Things that will get you in the great outdoors are obviously really, really beneficial overall health anyway, particularly if you work in an office environment or if you're inside a lot. It's great to get outside, get some sunshine, get some natural daylight. But also if you've got family, partner, it's making sure that you can have that social time with them, because that's great for overall health and well-being. And, finally, just realizing that activity is what we're designed to do from just a human being point of view. We are designed to be active and to move. And the more you move and the more active you are, the better you get at it. The more functional your body will become, the more different things you do. So it's really trying to mix it up rather than just sticking to one thing or just doing one gym routine. Is just really enjoy your life and do different things that keep yourself physically active, take up new hobbies, challenges, just do things that you really enjoy, and that will have a knock-on effect to everything else, and that will reduce your injury risks because you'll become more functional in general, and that will really set you in good stead for the rest of your life and improve your overall well-being. And that, in a nutshell, is the presentation. So we can hand over for questions now, if anyone's got any questions.
I think we've got a couple of people just typing questions in the chat function, Adam.
Yeah.
I've got one for you. So
Yeah.
what's the place of manual handling training in all of this then?
Yeah, great question. So manual handling, I still think is very important to teach people how to lift, and it's very important within the workplace. And the way that I look at it is you want to be specific. What is the individual lifting, and teaching them the right way to lift. But at the same time, is we don't want to lean just on manual handling and think that, if I give everyone manual handling training, that will sort the problem. It's more holistic than that. So we give people manual handling training, make sure they go through the training. That's very, very important. But at the same time, look at the individual risks as well, and making sure that person's fit for purpose and looks after themselves outside of work. Because then you're really addressing all areas and you get into the root cause.
Okay. And how does this compare with, I guess, what the HSE have to say about manual handling?
Yeah, so great question. HSE, again, they have on there about manual handling causes of back pain, for instance. They do have listed on there in the list about twisting and bending. But again, that is highlighting that these are some of the areas that they've seen through accident reporting that people report to have issues. Again, it's not saying avoid those. It's just making people aware that, these are things that ideally, and when we've had conversations around this before with health and safety executives, is to get people conditioned to those things. So if they need to do twisting, is it an unsafe twist, an unsafe bend, or is it actually reasonable, and we can condition that individual up? So there is looking at what the risks are, but then looking at the personal risk factors as well. So it's taking the overall HSE advice, but then making it more tailored and bespoke to the individuals and the jobs that they do.
Okay. Right, we've had a couple of comments from people asking for a copy of the slides, so I can send around a link to the recording later on today as well, so people can review those in their own time. And are you happy? I guess, I can share the healthcare RM contact details as well, so if people have got any questions, they can follow up with you directly. Right, we've had another question in. So it says, "Hi Adam, how do we change the environment of an office where most people are chained to their desks? Getting them to move is hard and requires real continued effort."
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I get that a lot with office workers. And a lot of the things that I do is using things like the kind of exercises you get told to do on a plane when you're getting told to do your DVT exercises. So simple things like moving your head side to side, doing shoulder rolls, doing some calf raises at your desk, standing up to take phone calls, or just standing up and down, just simple sit to stands. They're all simple things that you can do. And then it's making use of your lunch breaks as well, and the time before and after work. So personally, what I do if I have to be in an office all day is I park further away from the office, just slightly further, get some more steps in on the way into the office. And then I make sure that I take a lunch break and just get out for a short, quick 10-15 minute walk on lunch, and then do the same after work as well. And then whilst I'm seated, I keep myself moving around and switch positions and switch postures.
We've got a couple of more comments and questions coming through. Let's just wait for those. Okay, so George has referenced a website, ergosize.com, which he finds also pretty useful. Is that something you're familiar with?
Any more questions? Just seen one come up about exercises on Ergosize. Yeah, I'll check those out. Anyone else got any more questions for now?
Okay, well, I think that's everything. Thank you for your time today, Adam. Just got a few more comments coming through. Thank you, Adam. Good presentation and all very clear. Right, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's great to see some of the feedback coming in. I'm glad the presentation has been useful, and I'm sure details will be sent out. And if you do think of any questions or need any further help, just let me know. But it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you all today and being able to present. So I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Bye.